During the pandemic, we were all kind of dealing with the trauma and the crisis. And this group was such a positive experience in the midst of that, really thinking about what the possibilities are and really thinking about advancing the work.
One of the things that really struck me about the group and the experience was the multiple different ways that they sought to engage both the sort of heart and soul of this discussion. So we talked a lot about why things matter and what we're doing and the synergies across, but also really connected around art and poetry and some of the other ways that we can use mediums to create message and impact.
We have a lot to learn from each other and the varying contexts that we are each working in our various communities, but there are things that we can do together.
Both historically, the trust has been grounded in data, and we have commissioned research to try and understand where there are gaps in the field and what that looks like. We continue to use data and evidence, and we've expanded the way we do that to be much more systematic about the reciprocal relationship between what we can gather through surveys, through quant measures, census, and other kinds of publicly available data sets, and grounding that in the experience of what our community members are telling us.
That work is going to be advanced by effective storytelling. And if it's just quant or quantitative data, we probably won't be successful. If it's just qualitative and narrative forms of storytelling, we probably won't be successful. But realizing how do we create the intersection between those two in order to develop the conditions for raising awareness of the issues that need to be raised, but also offering solutions that advance, again, the reform agenda.
What we learned during our community perspectives on COVID-19 and the recovery was that the trauma that people had experienced really required that when we thought about expanding quality resilient employment, we had to think not only about how do we get people to jobs, but how do we help them adapt in this environment to the job. The quantitative and qualitative need to work together in a really symbiotic manner, but we've got to pay attention to it in a way that allows us to apply that information real time in our grant making.
The city is investing, for example, in Resilient Communities pilots, which is one of the largest direct cash assistance pilots in the country. And through our own grant making, we're also investing in a large-scale evaluation by the Inclusive Economy Lab at the University of Chicago, so that we can not only just make sure that those 5,000 families in the next year we're going to be able to get $500 a month, how they benefit, but how does it inform broader systems change and policy efforts that will allow us as a city to meet the needs of residents who are experiencing economic insecurity in good times and in shared bad times.
All of the work that we do to create the conditions for wealth building, to create the conditions for economic mobility, to create the conditions for community safety, and so on. All of it, all of the solutions that we need to find in order to solve those challenges or meet those challenges will come from people working together, people dreaming together.
And for Chicago in particular, is that we don't let this moment pass from really doing that close examination of what are those systems reforms that are required and how do people need to interact differently with those systems so that that there is greater opportunity for economic mobility, that people have a solid foundation from which they can experience economic mobility, growth, and wealth building over time.
Everybody needs to thrive, and that means that we have to continue to invest, making sure that everybody has access to those resources, that every kid can walk down a street safely, that everyone has access to education and healthcare. And so when we think about economic recovery and economic well-being, we think about what does it look like for the whole being to thrive.